see if we can make it to Wyoming this evening. I sure do. 78. TL1000 on.
Was a Berlin-based entrepreneur in the plumbing industry. Into sales, since the Sierra was actually a turbo engine capable of 600 horsepower, which was shown in the IMSA Mustang GTP, it was never homologated for Group A touring car racing, and the 5-liter 302 was the only homologated engine. By 1988, the Fox was becoming an outdated, non-winning paperweight against the European competition. That was until a German entrepreneur would give the Fox its final hurrah in Group A racing.
That was a long uphill. Yeah, that was a long uphill. Yeah, gotta get the 4-way zone.
Gerhard Ruch was a Berlin-based entrepreneur in the plumbing and heating industry with a passion for motorsports. He would purchase Manfred Trent's backup race car, Fox Body Mustang, since as a privateer without sponsorship backing, it could make some serious power for the money. BMW supported teams like Zaxby, Schnitzer, Linder, Degazi, would spend upwards of 80,000 Deutschmarks for the 2.3-liter S14 engine, making 330 horsepower in the Group A spec BMW E30 M3. Ruch was able to get 5-liter Windsor engines, making 522 horsepower from the US, for the equivalent of $15,000, which was a bargain. While teams ran 60,000 Deutschmark ECUs to control the engine, Ruch spent 1,200 Deutschmarks on a 4-barrel carburetor. From 1988 to 1994, his Mustang was the most powerful car ever to be entered in the DTM, and by far the cheapest at 100,000 Deutschmarks altogether. But the greatest part was the signature Keys Grader taillights. It was a David versus Goliath story, the privateer with a car engineered in the mid-70s going against Germany's latest and greatest machines, but reality would soon settle in. While very powerful on the straights, they couldn't match Germany's finest in the corners. But luck would turn around by 1992, a 10th place finish in the points at the Hockenheim ring, and a year later, a 10th place even though it never was bestowed with a podium finish, it became a crowd favorite for its outlandish sound billowing through the stands. The signature flames on deceleration, and most importantly, since it was piloted by a hobbyist, not a career racer driver. Similar to Dick Johnson trading his Mustang for a more competitive chassis, Gerhard Ruch did the same in 1995, trading his Mustang for a DTM spec C-Class Mercedes, a less theatrical but better all-around race car, but not without disappointment from the fans. From its inaugural season in 1984 till 1994, the Fox Body was entered in DTM, making it the longest-running model to compete in the history of the championship, longer production lasted from 1979 all the way through 1993. 14 years, subtle changes, special editions, power upgrades, and cheesy commercials. And while it wasn't as successful as many would have hoped in the crucible of touring car racing, it displayed that the Mustang was the jack of all trades, something every Mustang before and after has shown so well.
Got a tough welding job? Titanium welders from Harbor Freight, easy, quick to set up, dual voltage compatible, built with advanced inverter technology, consistent welds, built to perform, priced to save, only at Harbor Freight.
This is the story of a kid from a small town who had no money, no connections, and no privilege, yet somehow rose to become one of the most successful Formula One drivers of all time. Lewis Hamilton didn't grow up around racetracks in Monaco or rub shoulders with millionaires in the paddock. He came from Stevenage, a working-class town on the outskirts of London. While most future champions were being groomed by powerful motorsport dynasties, Lewis was just a boy with a remote-controlled car, a dream, and a father willing to sacrifice everything. But even when he shattered records and stood on the top step of a podium, he still wasn't accepted by everyone. In a sport rooted in elitism, Hamilton was different. Not everyone liked that. His journey wasn't just about speed, it was about breaking barriers, class of race, of expectation. And even when the world doubted him, he never stopped believing in himself. This is how Lewis Hamilton became more than a Formula One driver. He became a symbol of resilience, excellence, and what's possible when the world tells you no, and you do it anyway. Now, let's rewind the clock and start at the very beginning. Stevenage wasn't the kind of place where Formula One champions came from. Located in Hertfordshire, England, it's a modest town of council estates, concrete housing blocks, and football pitches surrounded by chain-link fences. That's where Lewis Hamilton grew up. His early childhood wasn't filled with luxuries, it was filled with challenges. Lewis was born in 1985 to Anthony Hamilton and Carmen de Ballestier. His parents separated when he was just 2 years old. He lived with his mother until the age of 12, then moved in with his father, stepmother, and half-brother Nicholas, who was born with cerebral palsy. Chips, Anthony Hamilton saw something in his son. Lewis was he watched Formula One races on TV, glued to the screen as Ayrton Senna flies through the rain-soaked tracks with precision and passion. On Christmas, Anthony bought Lewis a remote-controlled car. It was a simple gift, but for Lewis, it was the ignition point. He mastered the RC circuits, beating older kids and even adults. He had reflexes, instinct, and raw talent. That's when Anthony made a decision, one that would change both of their lives forever. He promised to support Lewis's racing dream. But there was one problem. They didn't have money. Karting wasn't just expensive, it was borderline impossible for working-class families. So, Anthony worked 4 jobs, tractor by day, dishwasher by night, anything to keep fuel in the cart and tyres on the wheels. The costs kept rising and the competition was brutal. Most of the kids racing against Lewis had personal coaches, corporate sponsorships and state-of-the-art equipment. Lewis had second-hand gear in bricks. The only way to stand
Are you looking to establish your business using an address other than your home? Wish you had a professional.
The only way to stand out was to win, and win he did. Lewis Hamilton entered the world of competitive karting at the age of 8. It didn't take long for people to notice him. He wasn't just fast, he was different, aggressive on the track, calm off it, and shockingly mature for his age. He looked up to Senna, and he drove like him too. Fearless, committed, always on the edge. By the time he was 10, he had won his first British karting championship. At the 1995 Autosport Awards, young Lewis approached a man named Ron Dennis, the boss of the McLaren Formula One team. Lewis, barely tall enough to reach his shoulder, looked him in the eye and said, "Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. I won the British Championship. One day, I want to race for your team." Ron Dennis smiled and signed his autograph with a promise. "Call me in 9 years. We'll sort something out then." But Lewis didn't have 9 years. His family was drowning in costs. They were running out of money and time. Each race could be his last. In a moment that felt like fate, Ron Dennis called back. Not in 9 years, but just 3. McLaren signed Lewis to the Young Driver program when he was just 13. It was unheard of. No black driver had ever been signed to a Formula One development contract that young. He became the youngest ever to secure such a deal. McLaren covered his racing costs. Mercedes stepped in with support too. Suddenly, karting turned into Formula Renault, then Formula 3, then GP2, where Lewis blew everyone away with impossible overtakes, racecraft beyond his years, and an unshakable mindset. But while others saw a golden path forming, Lewis knew better. He wasn't walking through an open door, he was breaking it down. Every paddock glance, every raised eyebrow, every microaggression reminded him that he didn't look like the others. He wasn't born into it. He had to earn every inch. He wasn't just racing for trophies, he was racing for respect. And soon, the call would come. You're going to Formula One. In 2007, Lewis Hamilton entered Formula One as a rookie. But this wasn't your average rookie debut. He was joining McLaren, one of the most storied teams in F1, and his teammate wasn't just anybody. It was double world champion Fernando Alonso. No pressure, right? But from the moment the visor dropped in Melbourne, Hamilton was electric. He finished third in his very first Grand Prix, then second in his second race, and another second, and another. He was relentless, and after just 6 races, he won his first Formula One Grand Prix in Montreal. He was leading the World Championship by the summer, but that success came at a cost. Alonso, the reigning champion, didn't expect to be challenged, let alone beaten by a rookie. Tensions boiled within the team. In Hungary, the feud exploded. Alonso blocked Hamilton in the pit lane. Hamilton retaliated. McLaren imploded. The 2007 season turned into a civil war. In the final race, Hamilton still had a chance to win the championship, but a gearbox glitch and a bold mistake ended his title hopes. He lost the championship by just 1 point. 1 point in his rookie year. It was heartbreaking. But it wasn't a failure. It was a warning shot to an entire Formula One grid. Lewis Hamilton wasn't just talented, he was ready. And the very next year, he proved it. In 2008 was redemption. Hamilton returned to McLaren with one mission: finish what he started. And this time, he didn't care who stood in his way. He won in Australia, he won in Monaco, he won in Silverstone, lapping almost the entire field in the rain. It was pure dominance. But Formula One is rarely simple. The season went back and forth. Dramatic penalties, strategy errors, and rivals like Felipe Massa keeping the fight alive. The championship came down to the final race in Brazil. Massa crossed the line first. In 38 seconds, Brazil thought he was world champion. But Hamilton, in the final corner of the final lap, overtook Timo Glock, securing 5th place, just enough to win the title by 1 point. The crowd fell silent, the Hamilton camp erupted. He was world champion, at 23, the youngest in history at the time. The first black driver to ever win an F1 world title. The barriers were shattered, but the battles were far from over. Because after 2008, everything got harder. McLaren began to struggle. The car wasn't good enough. The politics worsened. The pressure mounted. And off-track, Lewis was changing, embracing fame, fashion, music, the celebrity lifestyle. Critics pounce. He's distracted. He's lost focus. He's not the same Lewis. But what they didn't realise was that he never wanted to be just another driver. He wanted to be himself, fully, loudly, unapologetically. By 2012, a bold decision was made. a decision that shocked the paddock, a decision that would change Formula One.
They must stop giving conservatives this free gold Trump survivor coin. Starting this month, the 1776 MAGA Resurgence Initiative is taking the nation by storm, rewarding true American patriots with a solid gold Trump
Was made, a decision that shocked the paddock, a decision that would change Formula One forever. At the end of 2012, Lewis Hamilton left McLaren. He walked away from the team that raised him, the team that gave him his F1 shot, to join Mercedes, and everyone thought he had lost his mind. Why Mercedes? They had won just one race in 3 years. Their car was inconsistent, their future uncertain. People said he'd ruined his career, that he'd never win again, that he'd thrown away everything. But Hamilton knew something they didn't. Behind the scenes, Mercedes was preparing for a revolution. In 2014, Formula One would switch to new hybrid turbo engines, and Mercedes was building a monster. Hamilton joined forces with team boss Toto Wolff and reunited with childhood teammate Nico Rosberg. The stage was set. In 2013, there were flashes of brilliance, a win in Hungary, pole positions and strategic misfires. But then came 2014, the turbo hybrid era, and Mercedes exploded. They were untouchable. Pole positions, dominant wins, front row lockouts. The only man who could stop Lewis Hamilton was Nico Rosberg. The battle turned personal. Hamilton and Rosberg, once friends, now fierce rivals. They clashed in Bahrain, collided in Spa, sabotaged each other's races. Their relationship collapsed. But amid the chaos, Hamilton rose. He won 11 races in 2014. He clinched the championship in Abu Dhabi. He was back on top, this time not as a kid with promise, but as a man in control. 2015 was even more dominant. Hamilton crushed the field. His third world title tied him with his idol, Ayrton Senna. He became a global icon, racing in gold chains, showing up in red carpets, balancing music studios with the racetrack. But in 2016, the rivalry with Rosberg reached its breaking point. Rosberg came out swinging. He won the first 4 races. Hamilton responded with a furious comeback. They collided again in Spain and in Austria. Their garage was a war zone. In the final race at Abu Dhabi, Hamilton tried everything, even backing Rosberg into traffic. But it wasn't enough. Rosberg won the championship and retired days later. It stunned the world. In 2017, Hamilton stood alone at Mercedes. No more rivalries, no more drama. Just him and history waiting to be made. By the late 2010s, Lewis Hamilton had already carved out a space among the sport's elite, but it was clear he was chasing more than just records. Off the track, Hamilton was building something bigger. He used his voice to talk about things that Formula One had long ignored: climate change, diversity, racial inequality, mental health, things that made people uncomfortable, things that desperately needed to be heard. When George Floyd was murdered in 2020, Hamilton didn't stay silent. He demanded F1 take a stand, and the paddock responded. He took a knee before races, wore t-shirts bearing powerful messages, and called out double standards across the sport. And he didn't stop there. Hamilton launched the Hamilton Commission, aimed at understanding why black people were so underrepresented in motorsport. He didn't just highlight the problem, he funded research, education initiatives, and programs to get more diverse talent into engineering, mechanics, and design. He also teamed with Mercedes to create the Accelerate 25 program, targeting 25% of new hires at Mercedes to come from underrepresented backgrounds. But while activism was one lane, fashion was another. Hamilton became a global fashion icon. He collaborated with Tommy Hilfiger to launch collections that merged streetwear with high fashion. He appeared at Paris Fashion Week, at the Met Gala, on runways and red carpets. He wasn't dressing like a driver, he was dressing like an artist. Critics sneered, too flashy, too distracting, too Hollywood. But Hamilton had heard it all before. He knew who he was, and he wasn't shrinking to make others. it all, the fire to win never left him. In fact, it burned brighter than ever, because there was still one thing left to do. One final milestone that would place him above all others. Win World Championship number 8. The 2021 Formula One season was one for the ages. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, two titans on a collision course. Hamilton entered the year tied with Michael Schumacher on 7 World Championships, the record. Verstappen was the rising star, hungry for his first, and from the very first race it was clear this wasn't going to be clean, it was going to be war. The season became a highlight reel of chaos, overtakes, crashes, penalties, strategy gambles. Neither man gave an inch. They clashed in Imola, touched in Silverstone, collided in Monza. Every race felt like a boxing round. The championship came down to one final showdown, Abu Dhabi. They were tied on points, equal footing, winner takes all. And for 57 laps, Hamilton was flawless. He led the race, managed the tyres, held off attacks. The 8th title was within reach. But then came the moment that stunned the world. The late crash triggered a safety car. Race director Michael Massey made an unprecedented and highly controversial decision to let only certain lap cars unlap themselves. Verstappen on fresh tyres restarted directly behind Hamilton with 1 lap to go. He overtook him. Hamilton lost the race, lost the title, lost history. The panic erupted. Fans were outraged. Mercedes launched protests, but the result stood. Verstappen was champion. Hamilton didn't speak publicly for weeks. It was more than a loss. It felt like a robbery, and for the first time in his career, people wondered, would he come back? But he did. In 2022, Hamilton returned. Quiet, focused, determined.
This isn't just a walk, it's a rare fight. There's something different about owning something almost nobody else has. That's why when Ridge dropped their limited Suzuki collection, I had to grab one. Inspired by the Japanese art of turning imperfections into golden pieces, each Ridge Suzuki.
In 2022, Hamilton returned. Quiet, focused, determined. But the car let it down. The new regulations didn't favour Mercedes. Porpoising plagued their performance. Red Bull soared. Hamilton struggled, going winless for the first time in his career. 2023 offered more promise, but still no wins, still no 8th title. But through it all, he never stopped believing, never stopped pushing, never stopped showing up. Because champions aren't defined by trophies, they're defined by resilience. And in 2024, Hamilton shocked the world again. Not with a race win, but with a signature. He was leaving Mercedes and heading to Ferrari. The red overalls, the prancing horse, the weight of history. In early 2024, Lewis Hamilton announced he would be joining Scuderia Ferrari for the 2025 season. It was the bombshell of the year. After over a decade with Mercedes, Hamilton was starting fresh at 40. People wondered, why? Why walk away from the team that built your legacy? Why take the risk with Ferrari, a team legendary in name but troubled in results? But for Hamilton, it was simple. He wanted a new challenge, a final chapter, one last mountain to climb. Because if he could win with Ferrari, end their decades-long championship drought, it would be the ultimate storybook ending. But fairy tales don't come easy. Testing was tough. The car still lacked consistency. The media questioned the decision. Could Hamilton really deliver at his age? Was the dream over? But as always, Hamilton leaned in. He worked tirelessly with engineers, mentored young drivers, studied data long into the night. He brought belief back to Maranello, he brought hope to the Tifosi, and slowly, momentum began to shift. There were podiums, moments of brilliance, signs that the magic wasn't gone. But the 8th title, that still hung just out of reach. And maybe that was the point, because Hamilton's legacy wasn't just about stats anymore. It was about the fight for change, the fight for inclusion, the fight to be seen, heard and remembered, not just as a driver, as a symbol. A symbol of what's possible when talent meets heart. In the world of football began to shift. There were podiums, moments of brilliance, signs that the magic wasn't gone. But the 8th title, that still hung just out of reach. And maybe that was the point, because Hamilton's legacy wasn't just about stats anymore. It was about the fight for change, the fight for inclusion, the seen, heard and remembered, not just as a driver, as a symbol. A symbol of what's possible when talent meets heart. In the world of Formula One, numbers often define greatness. Wins, poles, fastest laps, championships. Lewis Hamilton has them all. But his legacy, it goes far beyond numbers. He didn't just rewrite the record books, he rewrote what a Formula One driver could be. A champion, yes, but also a fashion icon, an activist, a mentor, a disruptor, a global superstar. He broke barriers others were too afraid to approach and smashed ceilings others pretended didn't exist. From the karting tracks of Stevenage to the podiums of Monaco, Monza and Melbourne, Hamilton carried more than just a helmet. He carried the weight of history. He became the first and only black driver in Formula One. He made the sport listen when it wanted to stay silent. He turned pain into purpose, losses into lessons, and every setback into fuel. And through it all, he never stopped racing. Not just for points, not just for titles, but for something greater, for representation, for redemption, for legacy. Whether or not he ever wins that elusive 8th title, whether or not Ferrari becomes his final triumph, one truth is certain: Lewis Hamilton changed the game. And in doing so, he inspired millions to believe that no dream is too big, no voice too small, and no barrier too permanent. He didn't just drive in Formula One, he drove Formula One forward.
In 1997, Suzuki built a V-twin so deadly that went beyond just earning a nickname. It earned a reputation, the Widowmaker. In the mid-1990s, one bike ruled the racing world, the Ducati 916. This Italian bike had won 6 of the last 7 world racing titles through 1996. The 916's win wasn't about top speed, it was about power you could use. The V-twin engine gave riders instant power out of turns, while Japanese bikes with their screaming 4-cylinder engines needed higher RPMs to make power. Ducati's wins embarrassed Japan's big bike makers. Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki and Suzuki had spent years chasing pure horsepower with high-revving 4-cylinder engines, but the 916 proved that useful power beat top-end speed on real racetracks. The Italian bike's 114 horsepower seemed weak next to the 160 horsepower Japanese bikes, but its 65 pounds per foot of torque came at just 5,000 RPM. Japanese bikes needed 10,000 RPM to find their power. Suzuki bosses watched this change with growing fear. The company that created the modern sports bike, the GSX R750 in 1985, was now losing in world racing. The GSX R750 and GSX R1100 were amazing machines. They couldn't beat the 916's mix of power and handling. The answer seemed clear. Build a Japanese V-twin to beat the Italians at their home game. But Suzuki's engineers had a big problem. The company had spent decades making 4-cylinder engines perfect. V-twin engines were new territory, controlled by Ducati's years of know-how and Harley-Davidson's cruiser background. What Suzuki needed was a fast program to learn V-twin skills quickly. The project that came out would become the TL1000 series, a family of V-twin sports bikes made to take back Japanese control of world racing and grab the growing street market for torquey, fun motorcycles. The TL1000S was born from this challenge. Released in 1997, it packed everything Suzuki knew into one package. The bike had the company's first fuel injection system, a beautiful frame, and a brand new 996cc V-twin engine that made 123 horsepower. Their sports bike of 1997, they said, just months before it started viciously throwing riders off 140 miles per hour. There was a deadly problem hiding under the impressive specs. Suzuki's rush to market meant basic engineering choices were made without enough testing. The most important choice involved the rear suspension, a rotary damper system borrowed from Formula One cars. The engineering team faced a packaging nightmare. The V-twin engine was much longer than normal engines, so they needed a creative solution. Instead of using a normal rear shock, they used a rotary damper that separated the spring from the damping part. This system looked great on paper. It promised better heat control and more consistent performance, but it was complex to build and needed perfect manufacturing. Most importantly, it could only hold 50cc of oil compared to 300cc of normal shocks. What Suzuki engineers didn't understand was how different motorcycles were from Formula One cars. F1 cars work in controlled places with constant support. Motorcycles need to work for thousands of miles with minimal maintenance. The TL1000S project was rushed to meet a 1997 deadline. This pressure meant long-term testing was limited. The bikes looked perfect and performed great during short test rides, but they carried a hidden flaw that would only show itself with hard use. The stage was set for disaster. The TL1000S looked like a Ducati killer, but it would soon earn the most feared name in motorcycling, marketing team treated the TL1000S launch like a war against Ducati. The campaign was huge and aggressive, positioning the bike as the Japanese answer to Italian control. Full-page ads in motorcycle magazines called it the Torque Monster and V-Twin Revolution. Suzuki flew motorcycle writers to exotic locations for press launches, spending big money to showcase their technological breakthrough. The first mission was exciting. Cycle World magazine named the TL1000S Best Sports Bike of 1997, praising its innovative design and impressive power delivery. Motorcyclist magazine called it the bike that will change everything. European magazines were equally excited, with Britain's Motorcycle News calling it the Ducati killer we've been waiting for. Dealers couldn't keep up with the demand. Suzuki had first planned conservative production numbers, expecting the V-twin market to stay small. But pre-orders flooded in from customers eager to experience Japanese V-twin performance. The limited edition models, featuring special painted upgraded suspension parts, sold out before they reached showroom floors. The bike's looks were a major factor in its early success. Unlike the angular, aggressive designs of the raw Japanese sports bikes, the TL1000S had curves and character. The exposed frame gave it an exotic look with rival Italian bikes. The semi-fair design was practical yet beautiful, offering weather protection without hiding the gorgeous engine and frame. Performance numbers backed up the visual appeal. The TL1000S delivered 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration in just 2.8 seconds and could cover the quarter mile in 10.9 seconds at 129 miles per hour. Top speed was a real 165 miles per hour, numbers that put it on par with the best sports bikes of the era. Most importantly, the V-twin's torque delivery made it feel much faster than the numbers suggested.
This is the last chance if you're getting in here with no money out of pocket. Millions in government funding.
Numbers suggested, but even during the controlled press launches, no signs came up that should have raised red flags. The first launch event took place at Miami's Homestead Miami Speedway, chosen for its smooth surface and predictable conditions. Even on this perfect track, several writers reported concerning handling characteristics. Evan Cameron, a respected technical editor of Cycle World, noted in his first review, the TL's front end feels nervous at speed. There's a twitchiness that requires constant attention. Cameron, with decades of experience testing motorcycles, had the expertise to recognize problematic handling. His concerns were politely worded, but clear to those who understood motorcycle dynamics. European writers were less diplomatic. During a follow-up press event at Spain's Jerez circuit, several testers experienced what they described as aggressive head shake during high-speed runs. The bike would develop oscillations that required significant effort to control. Some writers cut their track session short after experiencing severe wobbles. Suzuki's response to these early warnings was dismissive and telling. Technical reps insisted that the handling characteristics were sporting and required skilled operation. They suggested that writers who had used the TL1000S's unique suspension system needed time to adapt their riding style. This response pattern would become tragically familiar, playing the rider, not the machine. The most concerning reports came from Suzuki's own European test riders during the final development phase. Internal documents later showed that test riders had experienced several severe instability incidents during high-speed testing. One report described a near crash at 140 miles per hour when the bike developed violent tank slammers that nearly drew the rider off. These incidents were classified as rider adaptation issues rather than basic problems. Suzuki's management, under pressure to meet launch deadlines and compete with Ducati's latest models, chose to interpret the data optimistically. They convinced themselves that street riders wouldn't push the bikes hard enough to encounter the stability problems that track testing had revealed. This decision proved catastrophically wrong. The production bikes that began reaching dealers in late 1997 looked identical to the press bikes that had received such positive reviews. They carried the same basic problems during development testing. The rotary damper system, while innovative and space efficient, had a critical weakness that only revealed itself with sustained high performance use. As the first customer bus hit the streets, Suzuki's engineering team was already working on the next model in the TL series, the fully faired TL1000R, designed specifically for racing. They believed they had solved motorcycling's V-twin puzzle and were ready to challenge Ducati's world racing dominance. Instead, they were about to unleash one of motorcycling's deadliest disasters. The phones at Suzuki's headquarters would soon be ringing with reports of crashes, injuries, and deaths. The bike that was supposed to establish Japanese V-twin supremacy would instead earn the most feared nickname in motorcycling history. The marketing campaign that had promised a V-twin revolution was about to deliver exactly that, but not in the way anyone had intended. The revolution would be written in blood, lawsuits, and broken trust. And it would begin with the first riders brave enough to explore the TL1000S's full performance potential in public The first deaths came quickly. Within months of the TL1000S hitting European roads, experienced motorcycle riders and professional testers were being killed in high-speed crashes. While Suzuki had never released official death numbers, motorcycle magazines documented multiple deaths specifically linked to the TL1000S's handling problems. The crashes followed a terrifying pattern. One surviving rider told Motorcycle News, "I was doing maybe 80 miles per hour in a straight line when the bars just went mental. Lock to lock, lock to lock. I had maybe 2 seconds before I was off." European motorcycle magazines began refusing to test the bike after several near-miss incidents. What made these crashes particularly disturbing was their root cause, Suzuki's revolutionary rotor damper system. Unlike normal rear shocks that contain 250 to 300cc of damping fluid, the TL1000S's rotary damper held just 50cc of oil. As suspension expert Steve Brubaker explained to Cycle World, that tiny oil volume meant the damper would overheat within minutes of spirited riding. Once the fluid lost viscosity, you essentially had no rear damping at all. As reports of deaths mounted, Suzuki's response was swift and predictable. Deny everything and blame the victims. The company insisted that the TL1000S was perfectly safe when ridden properly. They suggested the crashes were due to rider error, not mechanical defects. Official Suzuki statements claimed that the bike's handling characteristics were sporting and required skilled operation. They implied that European riders weren't experienced enough to handle such advanced technology. The message was clear. You crashed the TL1000S. It was your fault, not theirs. This victim-blaming strategy might have worked if the casualties were limited to inexperienced street riders. When professional testers and racing riders started reporting identical problems, Suzuki's narrative began to crumble. Motorcycle magazines began publishing detailed technical analyses of the TL1000S's suspension system. Engineers explained how the rotary damper's small oil capacity and poor heat control made it prone to sudden failure. Independent testing revealed that the damper could lose up to 80% of its effectiveness after just minutes of spirited riding. The most damaging evidence of Suzuki's prior knowledge came from court documents filed during wrongful death lawsuits. Internal memos revealed that Suzuki engineers had identified the rotary damper's heat problems during development testing. The 1996 internal report, obtained during discovery proceedings, stated, rear damper showed a significant performance degradation after 15 to 20 minutes sustained operation above 6,000 RPM. Despite this documented knowledge, Suzuki proceeded with production. Former Suzuki engineer,
"This is part one, the first fully immersive sleep system, intelligent, adaptive."
Suzuki engineer Takeshi Yamamoto, speaking to Japanese motorcycle magazine Auction in 2003, admitted, "Management knew the damper had limitations. They said most street riders wouldn't push the bike hard enough to encounter problems. They were wrong." The racing community, already suspicious of Suzuki's denials, began organizing their own investigation. Professional racing teams pulled their technical data and crash reports, building an undeniable case against the TL1000S. Racing mechanics documented oil temperature spikes in the rotary dampers during track sessions. Data loggers showed the exact moment when damping effectiveness would plummet, correlating perfectly with handling problems reported by riders. Most damaging was slow-motion footage captured during track testing. Video clearly showed the TL1000S's rear wheel bouncing erratically after extended riding, proving the damper was losing effectiveness exactly as critics claimed. British racing teams threatened to boycott Suzuki entirely if the company didn't address the TL1000S's problems. World racing organizations began considering banning the bike from competition for safety issues. The racing community's rebellion forced Suzuki's hand. With professional teams presenting undeniable technical evidence and threatening public boycotts, the company could no longer maintain its denial strategy. But even when faced with overwhelming evidence, Suzuki's executives were reluctant to admit fault. The legal implications of acknowledging a deadly design defect were enormous. Admitting the bike was dangerous would open the company to wrongful death lawsuits worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Something had to give, and with pressure mounting from every direction, Suzuki finally acted. In late 1997, Suzuki issued a global recall for every TL1000S produced. The company's official statement was masterfully crafted corporate doublespeak. They described it as a voluntary safety enhancement to address potential handling characteristics under certain conditions. No mention of the rotary damper failures, no mention of the overheating problems, no mention of the riders who had died, just vague language about enhancements and characteristics. The recall solution was telling in its scope. Suzuki didn't just replace the rotary damper, they retrofitted every TL1000S with a steering damper mounted to the top triple clamp. This addition essentially admitted that the bike's handling was fundamentally flawed. The steering damper reduced the violent tank slappers that had made the bike deadly, but it came at a cost. The TL1000S's quick steering, one of its few positive characteristics, became heavy and truck-like. The bike that had been praised for its agility now steered like a loaded touring machine. Suzuki also revised the engine management system, retarding ignition timing in the lower gears to reduce the abrupt power delivery that contributed to the bike's unpredictable behavior. Post-1998 TL1000S models made significantly less power than the original 1997 bikes. The recall effectively neutered the TL1000S. The bike that had promised to challenge Ducati's supremacy became a shadow of its former self. Heavy steering, reduced power, and a reputation for killing riders meant that the TL1000S would never achieve its intended success. But for the riders who had already paid the ultimate price, these fixes came too late. Even with the recall completed, Suzuki maintained its wall of corporate silence. The company never admitted that the original TL1000S was dangerous. They never apologized to the families of the riders who died. They never explained exactly what had been wrong with the rotary damper system. This silence was strategic. Admitting fault would have exposed Suzuki to massive legal liability. Wrongful death lawsuits could have bankrupted the company's motorcycle division. By maintaining that the recall was mainly an enhancement, Suzuki avoided taking legal responsibility for the deaths. But the engineering community knew the truth. The rotary damper had been a rushed, inadequately tested system that should have never reached production. The small oil capacity, poor heat control, and manufacturing tolerances had combined to create a suspension system that was fundamentally unreliable. Industry insiders revealed that other manufacturers had experimented with similar rotary damper systems during the 1990s, but unlike Suzuki, they had identified the heat and reliability problems during development and abandoned the technology. Honda tested a rotary damper system in 1995, revealed one former engineer. After seeing the oil overheating problems, they went back to normal shocks. Suzuki saw the same problems and released the bike anyway. The TL1000S recall remains one of motorcycling's most shameful episodes. A major manufacturer had released a fundamentally dangerous motorcycle, denied obvious problems while riders died, and then quietly fixed the issues without admitting fault. Today, the TL1000S disaster remains largely forgotten in Suzuki's official corporate history. The company rarely mentions the bike or discusses what went wrong during its development, but the lessons learned from the TL1000S disaster continue to influence Suzuki's engineering decisions. The V-twin engine from the TL1000S, despite the bike's problems, was actually quite good. Suzuki continued to use variations of this power plant in the TL1000R, SV1000, and V-Strom 1000. The engine's reliability and character made it popular with other manufacturers, but Suzuki never again attempted to use rotary damper technology. Every subsequent motorcycle has used normal shock absorbers with adequate oil capacity and proper heat control. The company learned the hard way that Formula One technology doesn't automatically translate to motorcycle applications. Modern Suzuki sports bikes reflect the conservative approach the company adopted after the TL1000S debacle. Extensive testing, proven technologies, and gradual evolution replaced the aggressive innovation that had characterized the TL1000S project. Some industry observers argue that the TL1000S disaster made Suzuki too conservative. The company that had been willing to revolutionize sports bike design became focused on reliability over innovation. While this approach prevented future disasters, it may have cost Suzuki its position as a technological leader. The ghost of the TL1000S can still be seen in Suzuki's model lineup. The company's reluctance to adopt cutting-edge technologies, preference for proven components, and extensive testing protocols all trace back to the lessons learned from the Widowmaker disaster. Despite decades of analysis, questions about the TL1000S disaster remain unanswered. How many riders actually died due to the bike's defects? Suzuki never released official casualty figures, and the company's legal settlements included non-disclosure agreements that kept victims' families silent. Did Suzuki know about the rotary damper problems before release? Internal documents from the era remain sealed.
I think therapists feel very undervalued, if I could be honest. In this field, the general expectation is for you to put your needs last. Headway has come in and said, let me help you. We're going to get you the right rates, higher reimbursement rates, then therapists can normal.
Remain sealed, but anonymous engineer testimony suggests the company was aware of potential issues but chose to proceed anyway. Why did Suzuki rush the TL1000S to market? Industry insiders suggest the company was desperate to compete with Ducati's world racing success and felt pressure to release their V-twin quickly. The decision to prioritize schedule over safety ultimately cost riders and damaged the company's reputation. What would have happened if Suzuki had conducted more thorough testing? The rotary damper's problems were relatively easy to identify with extended track testing. A few more months of development could have prevented the entire disaster. Most importantly, did anyone face consequences for the TL1000S debacle? Despite the deaths and obvious engineering failures, no Suzuki executives or engineers faced criminal charges. The families of victims received financial settlements, but those responsible for the flawed design faced no personal accountability. The story of the Suzuki TL1000S isn't just about mechanical failure. It's about corporate priorities when lives hang in the balance. The motorcycle represented genuine engineering ambition, an attempt to challenge Italian dominance with innovative Japanese technology. The V-twin engine was excellent, the styling was beautiful, and the concept was sound. But rushing revolutionary technology to market without adequate testing, then denying obvious problems while people died, transformed an engineering achievement into a moral catastrophe. The real tragedy of the TL1000S wasn't just the mechanical failures, it was watching a respected manufacturer choose corporate face-saving over rider safety. In a sport where trust between rider and machine can mean the difference between life and death, Suzuki's handling of this crisis was more dangerous than any design flaw. The TL1000S was deadly not just because it killed riders, it was deadly because it revealed how far a manufacturer would go to avoid responsibility. The rotary damper could be fixed with better engineering. The broken trust between riders and manufacturer would prove much harder to repair. The TL1000S disaster taught the motorcycle industry a lesson written in blood. Innovation must never outpace safety testing. When manufacturers prioritize market deadlines over rider welfare, the consequences extend far beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. The bike's legacy isn't just about failed engineering or corporate missteps. It's about the fundamental trust between riders and manufacturers. The trust that, once broken, takes generations to rebuild. Every time you twist the throttle on a modern sports bike, you're trusting that someone prioritizes your life over the quarterly profits. The TL1000S proved that in motorcycling, the most dangerous component isn't the engine or suspension. It's in the boardroom where safety decisions are made, because unlike mechanical failures, all failures can't be fixed with legal letters. They can only be prevented by reminding the riders who pay the ultimate price for short hits. The winner making a real legacy is the title of recall. The reminder that every motorcycle represents a sacred trust between manufacturer and rider. Break that trust, the consequences are measured not in dollars, but in lives. What do you think? Did Suzuki deliberately rush unsafe motorcycle to market? Are modern sports bikes hiding similar design flaws? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more stories about motorcycle controversies manufacturers don't want you to know, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Ever wonder how NASCAR Cup Series playoffs work? Outlasting first on the championship board, and you're doing donuts in victory lane. Now you're up to speed.
We're driving 1,000 miles through the yard of these vehicles we bought off the marketplace for less than $1,000. And we'll be facing treacherous highways, dangerously cold temperatures, and some unintended consequences. Oh no! That's an avalanche zone. See that? Negative right now outside. I lost feeling in my toes. First, a little background. Zach and I have done a lot of road trips together, all across America, but nothing like this. Alaska is big, cold, and remote. Most people wouldn't have this journey in a fully built truck. But us, we bought the cheapest 4x4s we could find on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of money to spend on Facebook Marketplace, so what did you spend your goulash on? $850 on an American-made V6 powered all-wheel drive Dodge Caravan. This is all-wheel drive. You know, you got limited options for less than $1,000. This is all-wheel drive. I didn't believe it until I saw the badge on the back. It's big, it's spacious, warm. Overall, it's a big purple jelly bean. Honestly, for $850, this thing is super good. I think I spent a little bit more than usually. There is a reason, and you'll see the reason. So I kind of got a glimpse of a little something on the front of this thing. 1990 Nissan D21 hardtop. Don't you get red. Okay, so this was may have been the only plow truck I could find for my budget.
Mr. Cloud.
Hey. Stop doing that. I see you have both rust and moss growing on each other while it's returning to nature. Before we start our journey, we're going to make a couple modifications to make sure they can survive the treacherous road we have ahead. We're here at Total Truck in Anchorage, Alaska. Thanks to our buddy Craig. Craig's not much of a talker. But anyways, we're here to do some modifications to our vehicles to make them a little bit more capable. All right, so you're probably wondering, what the heck am I going to do to make this big purple van more capable? Whoa. Well, the only thing I really can do is lift it and get bigger tires. They don't make a lift kit for this thing, so I got bigger tires. Not those. These. Guess what? Really hard to find stuff in Alaska. It's not part of the lower 48, so shipping and availability is all over the place. So I had to rely solely on Facebook Marketplace for everything I'm doing to this vehicle. So these are the only ones I could get, and guess what? They're not the right offset. That's as far as this wheel will go on. And as you can see, it's not fully mated to the surface. It's also touching the strut. That means I need the wheel to come out further. So that's why I brought these 2-inch spacers. Ignore the raining rust, please. So far, one stage is done. Let's put it back down, put some weight on this wheel, and see what it looks like. I ordered 35-inch tires for this thing, which is a very large tire for these little hard bodies. 35s should be good, and then we can go through just about anything. Oh, boy, that's a lot of... Ooh, yikes. You see all that? Well, hopefully none of that breaks, because I don't want to ever touch that. That doesn't sound good. Okay, so we do have an issue with this thing on the flat there. So, what do you think about that? I cut right here. We still got the bed mount right in there. All right, that thing looks awesome. And I did notice that the air intake, the air filter here, looked a little funky, and then I just sort of put my hand on it and realized this is not secured to anything, and also not for this car. So Craig happened to have a snorkel pre-filter laying around. It happens to fit right over our air intake here, and that's better than what we had. The hood kind of closes right on top of it and like keeps it in place. So this is better than that. This is basically better than what we had. It's a win-win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win. So right now I'm pulling the back wheel off before I put weight on this entirely, just so I can see what the situation over here is. Oh, I'm hitting the body. That's why it's not wet. We just gotta make it fit the fender, which is the easy part. Oh no! Got that? Yes, that's all cut. You didn't just break that off. I literally just spent. No, stop doing that. Hey, that is close to those leaf springs, huh? Nah, you're clear. Perfect. Just leave it right there. Done. Heck yeah. Experience luxury. Experience you. Experience the Mother's Bar Spa and Bathhouse, the therapeutic getaway for your hard-working whip. Certified automotive therapists will give your vehicle the full VIV experience. Pick from a range of therapeutic treatments such as California Gold's Glow Up. Get your baby whipped. California Gold's ceramics washes wax, leaves your car clean and glossy. Oh mama! Then California Gold ceramic paint correction exfoliates your car's exterior, removing scratches and correcting unsightly blemishes. Finally, elevate your car's finish with California Gold ceramic spray wax. That's ceramic made simple then, and it leaves your VIV with a liquidy, glossy shine. I brought my van there last fall. Looks like a brand new car. Our place isn't a car wash, it's a car spa. see what it can do. I'll be honest, it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel bad either. I also don't know how fast I'm going because my speedometer doesn't work. How you doing in there, Zach? I'm great in here. This is about the top speed that I got, but she's good. 45, that's it? Let me drop it down into 4 and see if I got some more. I didn't see a change at all. So these clunkers top out at around 45 to 50 miles an hour. So wherever we're going slow. I did also notice this morning when we put on the different air cleaner, that the engine moves quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see if it just falls off its mounts at some point. All right, let's talk about the van. So the Dodge Caravan was probably one of the first minivans of the 90s. American manufacturer. Being all-wheel drive, this thing could be a sick rally car, to be honest. And the thing's going to take us the whole way there. You heard that? You heard that? Taking us the whole way there. Minivan, baby. The only problem is this window is open. So I'm going to try and fix that. It's the second time the duct tape's come out. The van definitely has a few quirks, but $800, I can do a broken window and some rubber tires. It'll clear itself eventually. It'll do it. We're just hoping nothing is catastrophically wrong with this vehicle. So that dinging you're hearing is my oil light coming on and off. That's not good. Last thing I wanted to do is run this thing low on oil. It was like, it's not the radio. I was messing with the dials and I turned it off and I hear dun, 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 like a signal light. So either I have a huge oil leak or there's a sensor that's losing its freaking mind. You know, got tons of oil. What do you think, right? So the good news is it just seems to be a bad sensor, but better safe than sorry. So Justin on my truck was going to break first. And what do you know? Once we get out to the middle of nowhere, there won't be any auto parts stores to sell this extra wood. Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, our plan is to go from Anchorage to Denver. Yeah. Way to take some stuff out. I wouldn't do that too many times. And then that's the plow truck over there. Yeah, I know. So what do you guys think? You think we're going to make it? Yeah? I'm going to be close. Oh, come on. Alright, so the road from Anchorage to Fairbanks is mostly just highway, if you even want to call it highway, but it is smooth tarmac. But this is a really good time to shake down our vehicles, figure out its problems. So Fairbanks is the farthest north that most people in Alaska have been. They never go past it. They say there's really no reason to unless you work on the pipeline or up in Deadhorse. So far, my car has been really good except for that blue light scare. I wonder how Zach feels about his. My feet are starting to cramp up a little bit. Mainly because I had such an awkward angle in this car. Unfortunately, my wipers don't really do much. That's about all I can see out of the front of this thing, so I keep clearing the side with a sock. Hey Zach, do you have wipers? Yeah, the wipers don't exactly help. Hey Zach, do you have a radio? Yeah, it looks like I do. Have you tried it? I don't want to risk it. You don't even know what's holding this thing together. Nor do you. So this is funny. Justin, could you give me a little nudge from behind? I don't know, you might be too high off the ground, but I'll try. I guess that diff isn't welded together like we thought. Already saving your ass. That was sweet. I should have just gotten out and locked my front hubs.
There's a method to all this motorsports madness. A reason to do all this shifting. Launching battling over a bottle of champagne. We harness this and put it in that so you can feel like this. Now you're up to speed. Win.
Front hubs. Well, that was sketchy. I just got totally sideways on that.
Yeah, turns out the roads aren't as clear as we had hoped.
Okay, so we have 193 miles left till Fairbanks, and the road has gotten significantly worse. Half of it is like this snow and ice mixture. The other half of it is like damp pavement. Saving his ass yet again. Night's falling, and to try and avoid an accident, we've stacked Justin's spare tires in the back of my truck to try and add some weight to the rear end so that it stays a little more planted. Okay, so with the tires in the rear, it does feel a little bit better. Honestly, the scariest part now is the fact that the truckers start to come out at this hour. Sharing the road with a bunch of 80,000-pound trucks is pretty nerve-wracking. God, here we go. More snow and ice, and I've got 2 semis coming at me. Please get straight. Please keep going straight. It's absolutely amazing how fast the truckers blow through all this stuff. But we're on our way to Fairbanks. Sun's going down. The beauty is disappearing from us. It's been good so far. I have a lot of confidence in these vehicles after this drive. How you feeling, Jack? I feel good. I'm tired. I'm just so comfortable that my body's like relaxed. Yeah. Yeah. My back is cramping up good. Every time we hit a bump or a patch of ice, I tense up quite a bit. Oh my God, my heel. The heel of my foot. The pain that it's in. Do not ever tell Justin that I may have gotten the wrong car. I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him the plow was worth it. You probably can't see much of it right now, but we are getting some snow. And I'm just kind of hoping that all this snow doesn't go straight into my intake, because that would be very bad. I'm finding it hard to imagine how the Dalton Highway gets much harder than this. That was sketchy. You see that? I was sideways for a second there. It's no wonder why everyone we've asked if they've been to Dead Horse has said no. And look at us. Look at us. What were we thinking? Oh boy. Oh, every bone in my body hurts. Well, honestly, that was the first 350 miles of our road trip. Dude, right. This is truly the easy part. I put so much thought into would the car make it, and I really never thought about the question of would I physically make it driving this car. We didn't make it halfway. We haven't made it halfway. We haven't even made it halfway. And I'm going to do something that I won't undo until the end of the trip, which is I'm going to go ahead and just lock my hubs, because those will not come unlocked anytime soon. Anyways, that's the end of day 1. Now it's day 2. We're here. Let me get the turn. I think it's going to start.
A cold morning presents a new challenge. Will our cars even start?
This may or may not hit our whole trip. Alright, that's good. Battery's not dead. Come on, fire's right up. Alright, let's see if we can make it. Lucky on both starts. It smells a lot like gas. That's not necessarily a great sign. Whoop. Whoop. There we go. She lived. Alright, well, you want my some breakfast. I took my first little victim of the day. Justin's badge. entirely different way to get through town. They call it an ice bridge? It's not called an ice bridge. I guess it is kind of an ice bridge.
That's what the sign says.
Yeah, but it's actually a frozen river. Ah. You ever driven on water before? In a boat?
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Is it your car?
Yeah. In a boat? But we have a layer of ice on top that we can drive on.
How much layer of ice?
Feet? Oh, feet of ice.
You know what? I'll go first so that you don't break the ice. Alright, so Zach is Mr. Confident. He's driven on ice before, but that thing is super heavy, and I don't want to risk him breaking the ice before I get on it, so I'm just going to go first. I think I'm lighter, I think I have a better chance, and I don't really want to have to save his ass anymore.
Hey, Justin, just before you go over this, remember to put down your driver's side window and leave your seatbelts on.
Well, I can do one of those.
I thought those tires on that van is sick. I swear there's a snow machine or a snow machine going through, but that was it. We haven't had no accident. I always think about it. I don't walk across the snow before it rains.
This thing is doing incredible on the ice and snow. It's zero challenge for this thing.
Oh, not too bad. A little squirrely. This is fun. Hey, it's just like soft sand.
Oh, I hear lots of cracking. The ice is cracking. You know, when I told Justin that this was totally solid, I'm pretty sure it's totally solid. But they have had a relatively warm winter this year.